Welcome to the Indiana History Project. I'm your host, Norm Taylor. It's good to have you with us during this winter season. It's been rather chilly out there. We were talking about in December, it's kind of a January, February type of cold spell that we're having. The Arctic winds have certainly come down from the north and is covering our area, but we're hoping that you're staying nice and warm. You're going to have a very pleasant holiday season. It's been a good year for the Indiana History Project. We've got a lot of good things that have been going on, and we've appreciated your support throughout the whole year. It's been something that has been just a thrill for me to be able to work with our staff here to bring you shows in our local and regional history in the state of Indiana. And we're going to continue that on into 2011. In fact, probably what we'll do is that we're going to have some shows that kind of talk about in the footsteps of people that have visited Lawrence County, people that were a part of Lawrence County in the past, and I think you're going to enjoy some of them. I think of Gus Grissom. Buffalo Bill was here. Actually, Franklin Roosevelt was actually made a stop here in Lawrence County at one time, came through. We had Tom Mix. My goodness, Clara Barton was a part of our history, local history here. And, you know, it could go on, and I think you'll enjoy those programs as well. But this is the Christmas season, it's the holiday season, and a time in which hopefully we can get together with family and friends, and hopefully yours will be a blessed one. Just recently, as of the December 3rd and 4th, the first weekend of December, we had a time in which we spent at Spring Mill State Park, beautiful Spring Mill State Park, in which we had Christmas in the Village. And my guest today is one that is, has spent a lot of time in the Village, Coletta Prewitt. Coletta, it's good to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's always good to see your smile. You smile all the time. I've seen you sometimes, and I've been doing quite a bit of volunteer work, seemed like in the last year at Spring Mill, but sometimes it's frantic. I see you in a frantic, I'm not going to say it's schizophrenic mode. I'm not going to say that.
Sometimes it feels that way.
But at times in which I can tell that you've got a lot going on. You're pulled from different directions, but you always seem to have a smile.
Yeah, I'm a very happy person. How fortunate I am to work at Spring Mill. It is a beautiful place, and I've been there 20 years.
It is a gem for the state of Indiana.
It really is.
Is it the most visited state park in the state, or are we one of two? Is it Brown County ahead of us?
Brown County is ahead of us, and Dunes is ahead of us, but they're in a metropolitan area there. But we see about 650,000 people a year at Spring Mill. You know,
that brings a lot of tourists into the area. So, and Lawrence County tourism, I know, really connects into the Spring Mill thing, doesn't it? You know, what is your title there, Coletta?
I am actually the program coordinator and the volunteer coordinator at Spring Mill.
That's why I see you quite a bit.
That is
why. Because the volunteer, okay, the program coordinator and the volunteer. And so we're really kind of, what's your job? What do you do during the, and I know you're always busy, but.
Well, I bring the volunteers into the park. I actually contact folks, and if anybody out there is watching wants to volunteer at Spring Mill, I'm the person you get a hold of, Coletta Prewitt. Just call the park and they'll connect you with me. But I also work with people in coordinating the big events that go on. Like I'm working with you now, and we're going to work on something for Memorial Day.
Yeah.
But
Civil War days. Oh, that's going to be good.
It is. I'm really excited about this. We've never had battles at the park before, and I'm excited about this.
Yeah, this is the first time, and I want to touch on this a little bit, because this is the first time that they've ever allowed a battle actually to occur there at the state park, and it's going to be near the Village, and my goodness, that is going to be something new. But not only a battle, but we have a lot of speakers going on. That I know that Mrs. Stonewall Jackson will be there. We have Clara Barton will be speaking. Governor Morton always comes down from Indianapolis, and our Civil War governor is going to be there speaking.
We have an Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln will be there. Yeah, my goodness, this is going to be a nice event. Plus a Civil War ball.
And a ladies' tea.
And a ladies' tea. So we are going to have a lot going on.
It's going to be great.
That is going to be on Memorial Day weekend in Spring Mill. I mean, folks, you've got to take some time to come down and see the events that's going to be. This is the first, even though we've had some Civil War days there at Spring Mill, but we've really elaborated. We've expanded this thing for next weekend, haven't we? So Memorial Day weekend next year is Civil War days, and it is going to be quite an event.
I'm excited, yeah.
And, you know, but it takes a lot of time and effort to put anything together. People, I guess, don't realize, but whenever we're talking about the Civil War days, you and I have already been working on this for several,
Started
actually
the 4th
months.
of July.
Yes, we've been working on this now for months, but it takes a long time to put events like this together, of getting all the
Yeah.
volunteers and stuff for this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that is my job, to find the volunteers, to make sure the volunteers are happy, to make sure they know the rules, I make sure they have wood. It's my job to just be there for the volunteers.
And you do a good job. You always make everybody know. You always have some treats. You've made
I
some
do.
cookies, and you always make it just a very nice event. So if you're looking to volunteer, 1863, that's what Spring Mill is now. For years it was like in 1830s, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were
Coletta?
1832 for a long time, and we went to 1863 because there are so many Civil War reenactors that we really wanted to get them involved in our park. 1832, they couldn't really be there. 1863, we can have them. So.
You know, that's how our group got involved, because we've always done Civil War, and then 1832 was out of our time limit, so it limited what we could do. But
Yeah.
Certainly since 1863, we've been able to be
I
involved.
know, we get to see you a lot. It makes me happy.
Quite a bit.
It's just-
When we talk about Spring Mill State Park, why did you want to work there?
I actually, when we moved here, I moved here about 27 years ago, and I had 4 children, and I would take them to the park all the time. I loved that park, and I knew that once I got my kids in school, that was where I wanted to work, and I wanted to be in that Pioneer Village, because it was just such a quaint, friendly place. I mean, the people that work there are very friendly to the visitors. They make you feel welcome, and I just wanted to be there. And I went. As soon as my daughter started kindergarten, I started working there, and I've been there ever since.
So you started working there. You weren't actually a volunteer.
No,
then.
I started working there. And but I was in the Pioneer Village. That's where most of our volunteers are. And I love the volunteers. I realized that the more volunteers we had, the happier the public was, the easier my job was. And so the more volunteers we get down there, the happier we are in the park. So.
Whenever you have people that, when you have, like say, an 1863 village, when you have people that are there that are actually the volunteers, the reenactors, the living historians that are there, it really does add, when you have all these people dressed in authentic Civil War dress, it really adds to the place, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes people feel more like they've stepped into the past, into history. And visitors love that. It makes the village come alive.
It really does. It is and you know, they're just excellent people to work with there too.
They really are. People who volunteer are the best people. They are so friendly and outgoing, and they're giving of themselves and their time.
Right. Well, and you know, it is a volunteer, but you know, people again. The living historians, the reenactors, you know, they spend a lot of money, obviously, on their outfits. They will. Just in the Civil War reenacting, if you're a soldier, it's going to take $1,000 just right up front even to get involved. So there's a money commitment, there is a time commitment, and you have to study, and you are representing another time period, the mannerisms, the way they spoke, what was relevant to someone in 1863, so you have to spend a lot of time studying.
And people who are afraid to come to the park the first time because they don't know a lot about the history, they don't know what they're going to do when they come down there, I try to make it easier for them. I spend time with them. If they don't know, like when you guys came down there, you already knew the history. I didn't have to work with you. But there's a lot of people that want to start down there that don't know. I will spend a day with them. I will tell them what they need to say to people. I will give them the history of the village, and I'll stay with them until they're comfortable. Then I'll leave them for a little while and come back later to check on them. And if they're still uncomfortable, I'll work with them some more. So,
and I believe you're on the right track there. I know with the Lawrence County History Festival, there are people that want to come in, they want to get involved. And I've always encouraged them. I said, listen, you know, read, you know, spend the time, like in the winter time now, of doing some reading in the era that you're wanting to do. But then come in and sit around the camps. Be around the people that have studied this for years and listen to what they're saying. You know, and then you can just pick up so much if you're just listening to the way
Yes.
people are talking about the era, about what's happening in 1863, and they're going to pick up a lot of things just by listening to people that have been there and have done this for a long time. So I think you're on the right move.
Yeah, that's what we try to do at the park. And we give them information on the park that they can read before they start volunteering so that they know some of the history, some of the questions that people will be asking, and they don't feel like they're not knowing,
Coletta, you know, it has been a difficult time that we've been going through with the recession and so forth, but it has really hit the Parks Department, hasn't it, as far as financially?
We've had some cutbacks, but we actually have been very fortunate at Spring Mill. Our revenue stayed up, and so we haven't felt as much of it as some of the other places have. We're doing pretty well. It's hurt a little bit with hiring in some seasonal help, but I think we're going to be better this year. Actually, I'm pretty sure we're going to be better this year.
Yeah,
You'll see,
kind of points toward that. So
It does.
We're looking forward to 2011. When we think of the new year coming around, and we've talked a little bit about the Civil War days for Memorial Day weekend, but what's some things that you are kind of looking forward to in 2011 for you?
Well, I am really excited about the fact that we have gone 100% volunteer for Christmas in the Village. I mean, anybody who came to it this year, everybody they saw working, except for me and my boss who was running the Mercantile, Jill Vance, every single person they saw down there was a volunteer.
Yeah.
And we are trying to get more volunteers into the Pioneer Village, actually the entire park. If you're interested in nature, then volunteer at the Nature Center. If you want, we have a VIP program in our campground where you give us a 30-day commitment. You work 22 and a half hours a week, and you stay in the campground for free. And so, and your kind of jobs there are, you know, cleaning up campgrounds, picking up fire debris. It's really a very neat program that we have there too. We have 2 sites set aside for campers that want to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to our 1800s music program. That's in October. Candlelight tour is always a big event.
Oh, yeah.
That
Huge.
is,
Every year. Yeah.
My season of volunteering, working with volunteers really starts then. I mean, we have little programs, well, until this May when we're going to have
The Civil War days, yeah.
But starting at the weekend in September that we have candlelight tour, all the way through. Haunted Village is one of my favorite.
That is fun.
That is, you did that this
I
year.
did
This
that
was
this
your
year.
first year for that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it just, the whole thing is just, it's just like if you enjoy Halloween and in that time period, my goodness, it's like going back in the past, and everything is just Halloween during that one day, and it's beautiful with all the jack-o'-lanterns and all the decorations and people all dressed up. And
It is amazing.
I mean, it is a lot of fun.
And it starts, it actually, at 4 p.m. we close the village, we run everybody out. By 7 p.m. we're running people through, we've got it all decorated, and at 8 o'clock the next morning when the village opens up, it is absolutely back to a Pioneer Village.
Oh, it certainly is, and how just everything just metamorphs or just going right through that, it's amazing.
It really is, and we have, in the 3 hours that we're open, we have about 3,000 to 4,000 people walk through.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
Yeah,
and of course, we had the most beautiful evening for that last time,
It really
didn't we?
did turn out great. Yeah, it was great.
All of these events are, of course, dependent upon what the weather is doing, whether or not the crowds are going to be there or not, but where it really fell in our favor this last year, didn't it?
It did. It was beautiful. We got the snow, and it was,
The Christmas in the Village, folks, if you've never had the opportunity to come out and to witness the Christmas in the Village and get to go through the old homes and cabins and get a chance to see this is really worth it next year to put on your agenda to come. They're always the first weekend in December, I believe it is.
It's always the first Friday and Saturday of December.
First Friday and Saturday, very pretty. Friday night, all the cabins are lit up with candle, and it just has a beautiful feel to it. This is what this program is about, is the Christmas in the Village. And 1863, when you think about Christmas during that time, it was some joy like every Christmas is. There's a lot of, when you think about the the heartfelt, the warmness of the holiday season. Well, certainly that was there in 1863. But the United States was in the midst of a terrible war. In fact, one that was dividing the whole country, literally divided the whole country, set brother against brother. People that were selecting sides that would sometimes leave for the other side that would never see home again and would never come back. As always, whenever we think of Christmas time, we have a lot of veterans programs, as you know, and I think about those men and women out there that are in Afghanistan and that is still in Iraq today, that their Christmas, they're separated from their loved ones here at home, and I think about them. I certainly send a prayer for them during this Christmas time, how fortunate we are to be able to be here. But these folks are out there. It was the same way in 1863. They were off on a battlefield. They were away from people they really wanted to be home with. So when it comes to 1863, some of the things that the soldiers and the people on the home front were going through is the same thing, I guess, that people today are going through with our armed forces. So again, we want to say at this Christmas time, God bless you for your service for our country. 1863 was a time in which if you lived there, you would have recognized some of the things that was going on then. You would have recognized some of the songs. You would recognize some of the decorations that they had in 1863. Let me tell you give you a little bit of background about 1863. You would have heard caroling on street corners in villages and in cities, and some of the songs you would have heard would have been, and I think you're going to recognize these. It came upon a midnight clear, O little town of Bethlehem, and away in the manger. These were all songs that they were singing in 1863. The Victorian era brought a time in which they were kind of moving from a very private, religious type of ceremony to more commercialized type of public type of ceremony with Christmas. You start to see the emergence of that. So that's why you started seeing people out on the corners singing, and the songs that, like I just mentioned, these were pretty new though to them. It's been around for us for quite a while. In Goldie's Lady's book, it talked about Queen Victoria having a tabletop Christmas tree. And I also found a reference that in this would have been in 1853, so this would have been 10 years before what we're talking about is Christmas in the Village in 1863. Robert E. Lee's daughter, which he at this time was superintendent at West Point, by the way, they possessed an evergreen tree that was decorated with dried and sugared fruit, popcorn, ribbon, spun glass ornaments, and silver foil. So even as 1853, the future commander of armed forces in the Confederacy celebrated Christmas, and we would kind of recognize that Christmas tree a little bit today. It's kind of interesting that Clement Clark Moore, the religious scholar, that for years was embarrassed that he wrote the poem, an 1822 poem, by the way, A Visit from St. Nicholas, which we are going to recognize that. But he, for years, just kind of shied away from that. They just didn't seem to be right, but of course then today, that is a well-known poem, and Clement Clark Moore later claimed it a little bit more. But when we think about St. Nicholas, when we think about Santa Claus, there was the beginning of it right there. And in fact, in 1849, Santa Claus made his first appearance in a Philadelphia store, and of course this set the way for Santa Claus doing that a lot more a little bit later on. 1863 saw a time in which our Native Americans, our African Americans, I do Native American shows, so I get mixed up sometimes. Our African Americans were enslaved, and during this time, this was a special day for them on Christmas Day, because at least for one day, sometimes two, the African Americans could celebrate. They had their duties suspended, so those that were enslaved in slavery, at least for one day, they could celebrate with their family. They could have a day of eating and merriment, and sometimes the slave owners would bring them gifts of clothing, which was desperately needed. as mentioned on some plantations. But for the enslaved African Americans, at least for one day, it was kind of a reprieve for them. The soldiers, though, it was just like the soldiers of today. You felt the loneliness, you felt the despair. Robert Gould Shaw, for any of you that watched the movie Glory, he was a second lieutenant in the 2nd Massachusetts Infantry. He wrote this about in 1863, and again, if you watch Glory, he was the commander of the African American unit, the 54th Massachusetts, that fought near Fort Sumter in South Carolina, where they made their name. He says, "It is Christmas morning, and I hope a happy and merry one for you all, though it looks so stormy for our poor country. One can hardly be in merry humor." James Holloway was writing in Virginia. And again, whether you were Union or Confederate, it didn't seem to matter. "You have no idea how lonesome I feel this day. It's the first time in my life I'm away from loved ones at home." On the civilian front, in Christmas in 1861 in Richmond, Virginia, a lady wrote this: "Never before had so sad a Christmas dawned upon us. Our religious services were not remitted, and the Christmas dinner was plenteous of old, but in nothing did it remind us of days gone by. We had neither the heart nor the inclination to make the week merry with joyfulness when such a sad calamity hovers over all of us." And yet the soldiers and the civilians alike in 1863 still tried to do what they could. The soldiers were mentioned in their diaries that they had grease pig catching contests on Christmas Day. They had foot races, jumping matches. Some of them dressed as women, and they had dances. They had evergreen trees that was in the Civil War camps of the soldiers. A lot of times it was dressed with hardtack and pork. But occasionally they got to get away from the drills, and they got Christmas presents from home. They didn't have to go and try to get all the wood for the day, and so it was kind of a special day for them. And they had a time in which they so looked forward to the gifts that came from home, just like our soldiers of today, just like our soldiers of World War II, because it brought some special treats. As the war went on, though, the packages became fewer, and the treats became fewer, and the Christmas dinners didn't amount to much by 1864. But they still tried to make the best of things, as we all do whenever we have very difficult Christmases. And in 1863, it was the same way. People still celebrated life, and they still celebrated the holiday. We, Coletta, were celebrating the history of our country. We were celebrating what Christmas was like in 1863. And how long has this been going on down in Spring Mill?
Well, I've been at the park for 20 years, and It's been going on as long as I've been there. So
it's been a while, hasn't it?
It has been a while, yeah.
My wife was good enough to go down and take some pictures of 1863, and during that weekend, my goodness, it was just the snow just started as a light snow.
It was beautiful.
And it just made it magical in the village.
It really did, yeah.
And hopefully we can capture some of these in these pictures we're getting ready to see. Well, the first picture here that we have up here, Coletta, tell me a little bit about what we're looking at right now.
Well, that's a cedar tree, and that would have been a common tree in 1863 Christmas and in the village. That's what they would have had. There were plenty of cedar trees. They were in abundance.
Yeah.
There's another one. That one's in the mill, and you see all the paper snowflakes on there.
Right.
We actually had the children that came through decorate those trees with the snowflakes.
Okay, so they made them there. The
Yeah,
decorations are there, and
the
they
kids made them. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There's another tree decorating station. That was in Granny White's house, and we were letting kids string popcorn and put it on the trees.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
This would be Ginger. She's one of the volunteers, and she was cooking for the dulcimer group that was in Granny White's house. We had lots of good music, and she was cooking in the pots over the fire.
Yeah, that's a great picture. Oh.
That's Ginger carrying in some wood, I believe. Takes a lot of wood to do all that cooking.
What house is this here,
That
Coletta?
is Granny White's also.
Yeah.
That was a dog trot style home. You can see the snow on the hill behind her.
Oh, yeah, looks
It
pretty.
was so beautiful.
It was the, and we're going to make mention of a little bit later, hopefully, about the dog trot. Hopefully we'll have time to explain that a little bit more,
Okay.
what the dog trot is. Oh, great picture.
And there's the mill, and you can see a little of the snow.
A little bit of the light snuff. It was,
Yeah.
again, we worried about the roads being kind of bad, but they weren't too bad.
No.
But boy, what a beautiful, like a postcard scene that we see when we look at the mill and in the snow covering there. And there's another great shot.
You see steam coming off the creek.
Yeah, the steam, that makes it look just very special. This would be kind of behind the tavern there.
Yeah.
And what's this shot?
That's a picture of the Sheik's house and the Granny White's house from the mill area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Very much. Oh, that's the one that's going to be common. But people
Yeah.
love taking pictures of this area, don't they? What is
Yeah,
this?
that's the formal garden. That's the two arches and the path that leads through the formal garden and up to the garden cabin. And that is just beautiful right there. It's
Yes.
between the two big houses.
Whenever people get a chance to in the spring, look at that. It's beautiful in the spring.
Yeah. There's the mill doors, and you can see we decorated with some greenery, and we did ripped fabric ribbons the way the pioneers would have done it, just
Okay.
using old ribbon. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, nothing new, just... And there
Oh.
you are.
Yeah, there I am. Yeah, I've got my 15 seconds of fame. What house is this, Coletta?
That would be the upper residence or the house that Hugh Hamer resided in when he was owner of the village.
Yeah, and I'm going to explain to you about how come I'm dressed like that. You can see me as Santa, but it's a little different feel in 1863. Great shot.
And there's part of the dulcimer group. They played music in the village, and it was wonderful. They involved people. They had little bells and things that they would involve, and they'd have people singing carols, and they would play music. It was actually very nice.
How many Dulcimer people did you have there that day?
I think over the course of the 2 days, they came both days, there was probably about 30.
About 30. Oh,
Yeah,
that's great.
there were a lot of them.
Great.
Yeah.
Sure adds when you have music in a village
really
like that.
does.
Oh, there, talk about music.
And that is Cynthia Gettle, and they do a lot of volunteer work for the Salvation Army. You'll see her out in front of Walmart too, but they had that in the mill. It was snowing, and that's a very expensive piece of equipment, so we put it inside,
Yeah.
so she played in the mill.
And that stone, big old stone right there behind her, what is that?
That's the original grindstone of the mill. When we had to replace the stones, that's one of the originals. It came from France. It's quartz. The new stones we put in there were granite from North Carolina. They weigh 3,000 pounds apiece.
3,000 pounds apiece, my goodness.
Yeah, so we grind every hour on the hour.
Given that, how old would this rock be, stone be? Was it
That one was brought over in 1817.
1817? It's weathered well.
It has, yeah.
Okay, going on. There is.
There you are again.
Santa
You're in the
Claus
mill.
again.
Santa's in the mill.
Yeah, and we have one of the soldiers of the 27th Indiana, he and his wife, that was obviously home for the holidays, and that is visiting with Santa Claus there. Name is Dennis. He's from around Bloomfield.
That would be Jenny Scott and one of her daughters.
That's Gracie. She has twins there. That's Gracie. That's there. And that's, again, she spent some time
there.
in there with Santa Claus, and this is the other daughter, and her name is Maggie.
And you can see some popcorn on the tree.
Yeah, we started getting some of that, but we didn't get as much as we wanted to, but we were able to get a little bit on there.
There they are.
Yep, there's the twins there, and with Santa on the knee there. So, my goodness, that day I had the opportunity to talk with a lot of kids during that time. There were a ton of kids that come through there. Oh,
Yeah.
Another great shot of Santa, huh?
Yeah.
I had to explain a million times, though, Coletta, why Santa was dressed like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to, this is going to be, we're going to have a 1863. This is actually, and I'm going to explain to you why Santa did look like this. This is a Harper's Weekly. It came out actually in January 3rd of 1863. So by the winter of 1863, people would have thought of Santa like this. It was very popular, the Harper's Weekly then. Thomas Nast. For those of you that have done some kind of research on Thomas Nast, that you'll know that he's the one that kind of gave us the popular idea of what Santa looks like. Well, Thomas Nast was a patriot for the Union cause. He was a big supporter of Abraham Lincoln and of the Union cause. he was asked by Harper's Weekly to do a characterization, a sketch of Santa Claus. And so he talked to his sister about what Santa would look like, and she was talking to him. She was a teacher in New York City, and she told about how she read the famous poem, the Moore poem, about the visit from St. Nicholas. And so he came up with what he thought Santa would look like. And so from that photo I showed you, he had Santa Claus visiting the troops, and you can see that he thought that Santa ought to be a Union supporter. So therefore Santa dressed like what you were seeing in the pictures. I brought the outfit with me today, and I'm going to try to show this to you. This was what Santa wore here at the top. Now, people like for me to do this because it covers up my face. So, and I keep this. This is where the ratings really go up. But as you can see here, it looks like a flag. And this he did on purpose because he wanted people to think that Santa was a supporter of the Union cause. And so the top would have been looking like the flag with the stars. And then the pants, again, had the stripes to them, the red and white stripes, just like a flag. And this is the way Santa would have looked in 1863. I know I had to explain this a million times to kids during that time. But he thought that Santa ought to be one that should have been supporting the Union. So I hate to say this, but this first skit of Santa in 1862, again, that Thomas Nast did, well, he was really using it as a political cartoon. Actually, it was a little propaganda Santa there, because you can see here he's very patriotic for the Union cause. Now, if you're able to see this sketch a little bit more closely, you'll see that he is actually dangling, it looks like a puppet from the neck. Well, he was entertaining the Union troops with Jefferson Davis, the Confederate president. That's who's hanging from this in this skit. So again, Santa was used in a political way as a kind of a political cartoon, a little bit of propaganda in 1862 and 1863. So that's the way we think of Santa. Well, kids were not used to seeing Santa look like that, so it was a little bit different to them. But actually, this is the way Santa would have looked in 1863 for the population. Now you're thinking, well, Santa Claus also should have been down there for the Confederacy. Well, you're making a point. But times were hard in 1863 in the South. In fact, the parents would tell their little children that maybe Santa couldn't get through the Union blockade. So they didn't know if Santa was going to be able to show up or not. Things were very difficult down in the South during that time. So they maybe didn't have anything to be able to offer the kids. So it gave them an excuse that Santa couldn't get through the Union blockade. And so that was great thinking on their part. So anyway, but it's amazing because Thomas Nast, he's the one that gave us the North Pole idea. He was the one that said, you know, that Santa was from the North Pole, that's where he made his toys and all that. So because he wanted Santa to be not from any one country, so he wanted him to be universal. So he's the one that came out with the idea of Santa being in the North Pole. But he just didn't like the thought of Santa going down south. Yeah. I'm sure Santa made it down south a little bit during that time period. A little bit about what we were looking at in the pictures, Coletta. What about the dog trot? What is a dog trot? I know people will mention that to you.
Well, a dog trot's kind of like a garage. It's someplace that you could pull your wagon in bad weather and go ahead and unload it. It's a place to keep your wood dry. It's like what we would call a carport today, you know. So, yeah. And we have two styles of dog trot down there and in the village. One is the Sheik's house. That's the very first building you come to, and the house was on one side, the summer kitchen was on the other side. And with Granny White's house, the dog trot was right in the center, and the bedroom was one side of the house, the kitchen was the other side of the house, and then upstairs was dormitory-style sleeping for all the kids. You know,
we wanted to give a little bit of history to it. Now, some of these houses were not actually there on the location.
No,
Yeah.
no. We have 6 original buildings in the village, and the rest have all been moved in. But every place in the village that you see a building, there was a building there. So the village looks similar to the way it would have looked if you had gone down there in the 1800s and
Right.
seen the village.
Now, there's still some original village, original. Which ones are actually
Well, the
original?
mill is an original building with just some reconstruction to it. The apothecary and the mercantile are original buildings, the 2 little blue buildings. The schoolhouse in the village is an original building, and the spring house is an original building.
Yeah.
Now, where you see the carriage house, there was a barn there.
Okay.
And so, as you go through the village, you basically do see some of the original buildings. The mill office also is an original building that you see there near the school.
Last summer, they were doing an archaeological dig at one of the cabins there, and so, well, those folks from IU?
Yes.
Okay. What was that
Well,
about?
some of them are from IU. There's another one from Iowa that comes in. But, what they were doing is we were replacing the floors, and our property manager told them that if they wanted to come in and look and see what was under the floor of the leather shop, which that is sitting on the side of an original cabin, they could come in. So they had a year to do a dig down there, and they found a lot of interesting things. They found some chains, they found some glass buttons, some needles, things that would have fallen through the cracks of the floor. They also found a political button, I mean, they found some really interesting things. They're in the process of cataloging that now. And we're hoping to have a display in the mill that shows the different things that were found underneath that floor.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I remember getting to watch a little bit of that, and it was just really neat to see that going on. That whole that whole period could be an archaeological dig. I mean, that whole area.
Yeah, the whole area.
Yeah, really. We didn't get a shot of in the village with the tavern there whenever people would go in, but I took a few minutes to go up there and see what was going on in the tavern. That was a place of merriment during and I don't mean it in the way that maybe some of you are picking at that, but what was going on in the tavern during the Christmas in the village?
Well, during Christmas in the village, we actually serve cookies and wassail to the public. We start serving that at about 5 o'clock in the evening as the sun goes down and it's getting pretty cool. Yeah. And we have it provided by our inn. They actually cook that for us and get it ready. And the wassail was just wonderful. It was warm.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was very
and
good.
That's it's basically made of apple cider and orange juice and lemon juice and some good spices, cinnamon and cloves. And they boil it for a while and then we serve it to the public. But not only does it warm your hands, but it warms your innards too.
It certainly was.
Yeah.
It was just a real neat place. People, it was just laughing and having fun, and it was just a great place to be. Was in there.
We had toys out on the table for kids to play with, and nice big fire going to warm up by, and
I wish when I saw that, I thought, oh, we need to get the Victorian dancers back into that type of thing, and it would have been nice to have a little dancing or something up there if there would have been room. But I know it was pretty well.
I think the dancing we should do in the mill. I think we should get them back.
I think so. I think we could do that. That would be really neat at Christmas time to have something like that.
Yeah,
wouldn't
it really would.
I think the people would enjoy that. The Christmas in the village was successful, and the snow just made it look like a postcard back there. But what some kind of favorable comments do you hear from people that, I know some people come there every year and are involved. Well, why do they come back?
Well, we have them say that it just makes them feel like Christmas in the past. They said it's not commercial, it's very low-key and relaxed, and that is what people are looking for now. I think they're actually trying to step away from the bustle of the city, and they come down there and it just makes them feel good at Christmas. And they see the homemade things. Back in 1863, your Christmas gifts were all going to be homemade, and we have examples of that out there. Little paper wrapped packages under the tree, with just brown paper, and people like that. They want to go back, I think.
With the evergreens that was in the houses, with the wreaths that were handmade by you folks, I guess.
Our gardener Pam actually, she was a volunteer for this. She decorates the village for us. She comes in a couple days early and she just starts decorating. and she did a beautiful job.
Oh,
She just,
volunteers like that are worth their weight in gold, certainly.
yeah, they really are.
The reefs everything had the feel of 1863, and I just want to commend all you folks for being able to put
Oh,
this
thank
on
you.
for our state of Indiana, and it is just a beautiful time, and it does get you into the spirit
It
of
really
the,
does.
of the
It
holidays.
makes you feel really good.
We've been talking with Coletta Prewitt. She is with the Spring Mill State Park for 20 years, I heard right now. My goodness, I didn't know it'd been that long. But she is going to be, she again is the head of the volunteer part, the program part. And so when you are visiting the Spring Mill during these programs, you're going to see a lot for her. And hopefully in 2011, you'll spend some time in your local Spring Mill State Park because it's well worth the visit. Coletta, I want to thank you for being with me today. You've been a very gracious gift. It's always good working with you in there. And we're going to see a lot of each other, looks like, especially in that Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, I think so too.
It looks like it's going to be a good time. I want to close in talking about, again, going back to Christmas during the Civil War. 1863, Longfellow, that name is going to, right out, is going to be something that is one that is going to be, when you think of the poems and the writings of Longfellow. He had a son that was in the Civil War. He wrote one of the most famous poems that we're going to ever hear about Christmas. It was entitled, and it was put to music later, "I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day." How this came about was that his son Charles, his oldest son Charles, was a lieutenant in the Army of the Potomac. He had been severely wounded in a battle, and the personal despair, again, when we think of just having one of our loved ones in a combat zone during Christmas time or any time. But Longfellow had heard about his oldest son being wounded, didn't know if he was going to survive or not. He wrote this song, this poem, in kind of reflecting of the despair that he was feeling and that Americans were feeling in 1863. Charles was struggling to recover from his long war injury whenever his dad wrote these words. "I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat, of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And thought how, as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along the unbroken song, of peace and earth, goodwill to men. Till ringing, singing on its way, the world revolved from night to day, a voice, a chime, a chant sublime of peace on earth, goodwill to men." But this you won't hear when you hear the song here in 2010. But these words were actually a part of the stanza that Longfellow wrote. "And in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men." You won't hear that fourth stanza that says there is no peace on earth. The hate is strong and marks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. But that's the way Longfellow felt in Christmas of 1863. He was hurting, as a lot of people were. It was a time of great, great despair. The war was still going to drag on for another year and a half after this. But in the midst of all, hope prevails. People still got together with family. They still had time to laugh, still overcome the darkness that sometimes that people feel on Christmas Day. So this year, you may be feeling that yourself. The hope is there. There's that silver lining. Still the bells will ring. Still Christmas will come through. And hopefully, for all of you that have experienced the many Christmases, the good times and the bad times, we of the Indiana History Project, we want to wish you the very best and the merriest of all Christmas. Thank you for watching.